Hello, I hope you hear me well. This is Stefano, co-founder of Cabit. Greetings from Italy, by the way. It's great to be connected and see you all. So we are the only deep tech in Europe, the only deep tech startup that is building a distributed infrastructure as the new engine for the cloud. And we're now serving more than 70 clients in more than 70 countries. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. And if we can move with our next panelist, or virtual panelist, to speak a little bit about himself. Thank you very much.
Sure. Hello, everybody, and thanks for inviting me. My name is Raghuram. I am the CEO of VMware. VMware is a global company based in Palo Alto, California. And in fact, that's where I'm zooming in from, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much. And now let me just, on my left-hand side, I would like to introduce these two gentlemen. Actually, you will introduce yourselves. We've been talking and speaking and emailing for some time, so it's good to connect and see your faces.
Okay, I'll start, or do you want to?
Please.
Okay, I'm Jeroen from the Netherlands. I'm from Royal Philips, where up to this summer I was Chief Innovation and Strategy Officer. Before that, I've been active in the financial services industry, ran my own company, and I'm now dedicated to help Gaia-X succeed, but also the innovation ecosystem around it and the support those startups and scale-ups will require to be successful.
Thank you very much. And Carlo?
Okay, I'm Carlo. Back to Italy after 20 years in Paris. I run a company called Nuvo, which is a new company that Telecom Italia has created to focus and grow its data center and cloud activities. And before that, I've spent 10 years at Google, so I am in this turmoil of kind of things since now, I don't know, 15 years.
Wonderful. So, gentlemen, the idea is that we follow with a couple of questions for each one of you. So we'll try to do a rotation of some questions, and then we kind of open up to a discussion and also clarify a couple of questions from our physical attendees, but equally from our virtual attendees. Okay. Beginning with Jeroen, why are you an active member of Gaia-X, and more so, why are you an active board member? I would like to hear.
Yeah, I think what we're doing here is critical to the EU digital economy. And you know, I've lived 18 years in the US and worked very closely with some of the large companies there. And it was very interesting, actually this week, to read that GE and J&J have decided to split themselves up. And these companies are all 100 years old, like Philips, 130 years old, but they built their business on access to capital, on world-class processes and business practices. And now you look at the new conglomerates like Tesla and Amazon, you see they built their business on data. So they use the data to have deep insights in their customers, to create propositions around that, to optimize their business. But they're kind of monolithic, so they want to be bigger and bigger. And then in China, they put a wall around it. So if you look at the EU, it's a different environment. You know, we heard talk about the automotive industry, where there are thousands of small and medium-sized companies that contribute to a very sophisticated value chain. And that applies to other industries as well, agriculture, aerospace, health, life sciences. And what I can see is that the best model for Europe would be to respect that diversity, so to find growth through that diversity, but create scale through federation. With that, I mean that you start leveraging the data. And in a way, I compare data to love. You know, you spread it and everybody wins. And the same is with data. You share it, and the value you can derive can grow exponentially. But if you enable the scale behind it, the cost of sharing that and enabling that can go to zero. So you kind of see an inverse economic model. And if we listen to what you can do in automotive, you know, better supply chains, better market access, circular economy. If you link that to mobility, then you can see, okay, we get data from traffic lights, from cameras, people report traffic incidents, we have connected cars. These worlds can come together and you get deep insight in why people move, where they move, and how they want to move. But for health, it's even more important. I think with health, if you get access to what's really going on, and we use an open data approach to COVID, we would have way better insight in how the disease spreads, how you can develop and analyze vaccines for it, how you can coordinate the care, have better insights in protocols, and support those at the front end, the front line, dealing with patients. So I think there are plenty of examples where we say if we come together, if we share data, but in a trusted way, in a federated way, we can create a complete new industry and get new innovation, better outcomes.
Which takes me to the second question. What is the advantage that you see creating federated solutions in the health sector?
Well, I want to start with a call I got way back when my daughter was 12. And they called me up, and it's the kind of call that you hate to get. So my daughter is on the way to the hospital in ambulance, and she's in the ICU. Oof. And she spent 3 days there, and she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And my daughter's 31 now, so that's a long time back. But in the meantime, there hasn't been a lot of progress. And she tells me that I'm the data aggregator. I have to carry my data, interpret my data, bring it to the next, specialist, because the disease has a lot of complications. And she said, I'm the care coordinator and orchestrator. So if we take that and say, hey, what if we could combine and aggregate the data, use AI to interpret it, and the importance of AI cannot be underestimated because it's humanity's first cognitive technology that can keep learning and learning and learning. And if there's any one space where that learning can be applied for better care, but also finding a cure for the disease. But it applies equally to cancer. What if we could combine what we see on an image with what we see in the blood, with the pathology, with your genetic code? That could lead to completely new therapies, combinations of therapies. But it will never happen if we don't combine the data. True. So I see a huge opportunity, not just for a healthcare system to come better, but to create a huge wave of new innovation. And the quality of the data in Europe is really good. But we don't do anything with it. We have hundreds of initiatives that are short-lived, that leave data graveyards, and there's no sustainable growing effort for the data. So I'm very happy also to say that Charité in Germany, in Berlin, the Health Institute of Luxembourg, the hospitals in Paris, Sitra in Finland, we're all coming together to address this and hopefully create a momentum towards Gaia-X, federated shared data spaces.
Thank you very much, Jeroen. And on your end, Carlo, we've been talking, emailing. It's always nice to see the person behind the emails and the phone calls. I see that you keep yourself busy for so many years. So Team AOL, KPMG, many companies. So, and you're also the vice chair of Gaia-X, and we're grateful for your support for some time now. So my question is, why are you an active member of Gaia-X? And more so, what keeps you going for being an active member from a board of directors?
Well, first of all, I think when you try to be significant, but you're a small operator in Italy, you need standards. You need collaboration with other operators around in order to bring value. So the first element is alone, you can't develop something that will be efficient and efficacious in terms of value proposal for companies, number one. Number two, if I could choose what to do in my life, I would produce wine. And if you produce wine or agriculture, you know that, and you see that every day, they look at clouds and they want different clouds every day. One day, they want a cloud with rain. The other day, they need the cloud for shadows. The third day, they look at the clouds and say, maybe if I mix them together, but clouds are a very big part on making grapes grow.
True.
Multiple clouds. We have got here a representative of great friend. Personally, we don't know each other, but your company is a great friend of mine, VMware. We rely on lots on VMware. It's probably one of our main partners because of hybrid, because of many forms of cloud, because of being the glue. So to me, I see the role of Gaia-X as being the glue among multiple clouds, being capable of defining values for which data can flow among the clouds in a proper way and facilitate data distribution, create technical specifications to keep us honest as operators and provide value together, and finally, being able to discuss with the hyperscalers with some clout, not clout. The ability to talk to them, obtaining things. You know, I've been at Google for 10 years. It's a fabulous company, but what do they try to do? They try to do the same around the world. While what do we have to do? We have to have standards for efficiency, but we have to apply what we do to every reality in every industry or in every country somehow. So my biggest concern is confusion. So if I've learned one thing in the years I worked on the internet is that the ideas don't matter that much. What matters is the quality of execution of your ideas.
Quality assurance, yeah.
Sorry?
Quality assurance.
Well, I think it's true. Google did not invent the search engine. Apple did not invent the phone. I can continue for hours telling you which company that you think has invented something on the internet has copied it from somebody else. The idea, but the execution has been fantastic.
Okay.
So the reason why I'm on the board is I'm trying to contribute to defining a clear ambition that can be achieved. And with a group of companies like us, 300 companies, to me, our biggest risk, in all honesty, is that we have 300 ideas and then we can't execute them. So we have to bring those 300 ideas into one execution pattern, humble, simple, effective, coherent, driven.
So in that direction, why is it important for you as a cloud provider to enable Gaia-X? And then on a second point, you know, from your perspective, is what is the advantage that you see personally and professionally, obviously, because both aspects
well, as a European, I would say Europe fascinates the world with luxury companies. Europe says that it is the continent of the human rights. Actually, my French colleagues, I'm French, so we French say that. We base what we do on values. And maybe because we've been terrible in the 20th century and all over the past, well, now we think we should be better. No, right? We made mistakes before. So let's say it, we made mistakes before. Now, the point to me on this is the chance of Europe to represent something in the world is through its values. And Gaia-X represents the most important values Europe has. Openness, transparency, collaboration are values that, you know, define the human being. So, first of all, those values, this being European, this leaving the world in a certain way, this care for certain elements is absolutely fundamental. And the second point is doing it together. You know, if you come here today, you meet lots of experts, you learn something, you share something, and you should be better after that. And you know, if we believe that any of the economies in Europe can alone develop something that will have an influence at global level in cloud, I think we make a mistake. We all need each other.
Yeah.
And also in particular, I would like to end up with that. When I think to the data spaces, you know, I remember going to Germany some time ago and they told me, Carlo, oh, it's great. Yeah, we are doing this Catena-X, but we need also the small and medium companies in it, from Italy, from other countries to be in it. And I think we should never forget that. If we collaborate together between operators of the sector, and that's why I'm here, by collaborating together, by co-investing on certain things, by developing technical specifications which are clear and which we share, we can bring the small and medium companies and the economies with us. If we don't do that, no chance.
So, okay, however, is it important to create, and you see creating federated solutions as an important advantage in the infrastructure space, concretely?
Okay, I think we should get into a bit more detail, because when we use the word federated infrastructure or infrastructure, I think we still need to do some work together to define what exactly we mean.
Okay.
And you know, sometimes if we say at a too high level, it becomes very emotional and we don't know exactly what we'll define. To me, if a federated infrastructure is something that will allow to generate technical specifications shared among that federation, if we agree on what we don't do and what we do in developing platforms in terms of openness, in terms of collaboration, then yes, a federated approach is extremely important. It should be about strengthening our ability to interact with others by being coherent ourselves. And if by federated we mean each of us need to contribute by building a piece of that, yes, I believe that's the way to go.
Okay. Thank you very much, Carlo, Jeroen. I would like to pass the floor to our virtual panelists today, beginning with Raghu. Raghu, it's a pleasure, first of all, having the chance to meet you. You are very active in several Gaia-X working groups. We thank you for your support. We also think that, we know that you lead one of the largest American technology providers. In this context, how do you see your contribution to the Gaia-X endeavor, both on a personal note, but also from a professional angle, given your role?
Yeah, firstly, thank you for giving me an opportunity on this panel, and thank you, Carlo, for the partnership. If you think about what VMware's fundamental mission is, when we talk about it, if you go to our website, if you talk to any of VMware employees, they'll say our mission is to be the trusted software foundation that accelerates innovation, right? And what we see Gaia-X is doing is very synergistic and aligned with that vision. And for all of the federation benefits that were spoken about, or the cancer research examples or the diabetes examples, you need a data infrastructure where there can be easy exchange of data, but also portability of the applications that use the data, interoperability, and most importantly, reversibility. These are exactly the sort of attributes that you need to build into the infrastructure in order to support the goals of an organization like Gaia-X, and in order to support the business use cases that are envisaged by Gaia-X. And we believe we can provide a foundational element of this technology to enable this to happen. And as Carlo talked about, we believe, contrary to popular opinion, the world is not getting centralized into 3 clouds. We actually believe that certainly the enterprise world is getting even more distributed than ever before. The rise of clouds that have to abide by the sovereign nature of individual nations, the rise of clouds at the edge of the network, the rise of clouds in the telco as the next generation of as the next generation of applications that blur the physical and the virtual happen, and things like 5G happen. We see this world being extraordinarily distributed. In a highly distributed world, what is most important is this idea of federation and interoperability and data exchange. Otherwise, these becomes very balkanized and subscale, and you can't really achieve the business goals that led to the creation of these distributed environments in the first place. So that's why we are super interested in Gaia-X, and we are an active contributor. And so that's part 1. Part 2 is it's a terrific technology problem. I mean, I'm a technologist. I grew up as a technologist, and VMware is at core a hardcore technology company. And the challenge of dealing with solving these problems, and I'm sure Stefano would talk about it as well, it's a distributed computing problem, and we love solving those problems.
Raghu, in this context, and given your leadership role, and obviously combined with the fact that we see lots of interest from a lot of US tech providers in Gaia-X, how do you see the current and future role of US tech providers in the Gaia-X space?
Yeah, I mean, I think I see a very robust and vibrant future for US tech providers that choose to engage in Gaia-X or in the larger cloud efforts, not only in Europe, there are similar situations in lots of Asian countries as well. And the reason for that is, like I said, if you believe everything has got to be in one place and subject to the laws of one country, yes, there is not an opportunity for US tech providers, but that's not the way the world works. That's not historically 20 centuries of how the world has worked. And so what we have to do fundamentally, I'm going to speak for VMware, but it applies to lots of my peers, is if you say, look, the reason we exist in business is to make other businesses better and other businesses better globally around the world, then it becomes a fundamental necessity for us to figure out, okay, how do I make all these European companies and these European nations better? If you look at it as the problem definition, then there's a whole set of problems that we can solve that we are, speaking as VMware specifically, particularly suited to solve. That's how we approach it. That's how a lot of peer companies approach it. For example, one of the early implementations of a SECNUM compliant cloud in France is OVH. And OVH is built on our stack on the software side, but it's built on the Intel architecture on the hardware side and many other components that belong to US companies. So I firmly see there is a very rich and robust set of opportunity to promote the growth of economic activity due to Gaia-X, and that's fundamentally why we are in the business.
Thank you very much. And moving on with Stefano, you are a great, smart startup in the emerging digital startup ecosystem. This also means that you have limited resources in most respects, given that you are a startup. However, you still find the time to support Gaia-X, both its vision, its mission, but in fact, to making it happen and making it a successful project. This is not necessarily common with startups. So my question is, all right, we know all these members that are associated with Gaia-X. Do you feel small in the Gaia-X Association as a startup, or do you actually feel enabled? Do you feel that you can actually contribute here and you can be part of the group? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Hope you can hear me well. Well, it's easy to feel small when you are, in a panel with these very great guys. Thank you for what you shared, representing awesome companies from my home country, like Team and Nouvel or Philips or VMware. It's awesome to hear you there. But actually, you're never too small when it comes to vision and values. And we are innovating the distributed infrastructure at the edge of the cloud, as I briefly said. But our goal is exactly to integrate with the centralized providers that are members of Gaia-X and evolve together. That's why we're proud to support Gaia and with all our resources, although being very limited. And I think Cabot's contribution here is to remind everybody, just like Raghu was saying, that thinking outside the box with regards to cloud today actually means more and more to think outside the data center and catch new opportunities. And we believe that web services will be forced to evolve. It's not an option because in the next 10 years, billions of terabytes of new data will be produced and billions of devices will be scattered in our homes and offices. In many use cases, only distributed solutions can be the leaders in the internet of the future. And we try in Cabot to be one of the enabler of this future, because with our peer-to-peer technology, every device at the edge can be connected into a hybrid distributed cloud solution. So my message as a small startup to every Gaia-X member, starting from Carlo, Raghu, and Jeroen, is that if you want to enforce digital privacy as a human right, and if you aim to avoid useless infrastructure cost in many use cases, and if you are in the fight to tear down the carbon footprint of the internet, well, then Cabot New Technologies at it's your full disposal, and we're here to collaborate. That's Gaia-X spirit.
Fantastic.
So my second question is, and I'm thinking of one word that you said, which is extremely important. You said Gaia-X is an opportunity for us. So obviously you're a startup, you have been in the business for some time, you strike me as a very smart person, obviously. At the same time, you have a certain expectations, a certain series of expectations, I would say, as a startup from Gaia-X. Could you please elaborate on that?
Sure, we do have expectation. Well, actually, what we would like you to do is to push all members to collaborate and to have full green light to remind us every day, to push us also every night. So please do it. It's actually the only way through which disruptive technology can emerge from Europe. The more we collaborate, the better. You're doing a great job, and please do not stop. I think our role as members, so you have a job, and we do have one too, right? And our role as members is to make it as easy as possible to collaborate. So for example, that's why we have worked a lot to make our technology as integrable as possible. So for example, we run everywhere. Our software can run on computers, IoT systems, on 5G routers. It can be embedded in any device. And we're cloud agnostic, so we don't have preferences because our software orchestrator can be virtualized in a container and can run on every cloud, whether it is public, private, or on-prem. And our distributed infrastructure can actually make data more resilient and with less need of duplication, which is always a pain, and with higher level of security, both internal and external from the organization. So it's not just theory. It's we're trying to bring a Gaia-X in the federated approach of Gaia-X into life with a tangible example. And in a few weeks, we are launching a new network, which we have called Next Generation Cloud. So basically, it's reserved to a group of pioneers in Italy, just to start. It's the beginning. So we found extraordinary enterprises and SMEs, like Carlo was saying before, that have already perceived the power of distributed cloud solution, which means to get more privacy, to spend less money, and to waste less energy. And they are going to be the first up-and-running example of how a distributed cloud infrastructure can fulfill storage needs. And I'd like to share this example with all the Gaia-X members because the more we share, the better we grow. And by the way, if you want to find out more about this, you can find it at ngc.cabit.io.
So now my question to all of you is the following. Gaia-X is delivering and is realizing. So if we were to define Gaia-X by one word that each of you could define, and then a second word of your wish. Give me two keywords.
One word? You
one
constrain me terribly.
I know, Jeroen, I know.
But beauty comes out from constraints. Right?
Yeah, I know, but data innovation.
Excellent. Carlo?
That's two words, but okay.
No, it's okay.
One word I would say sharing.
Sharing.
The first one.
Okay.
And the third as an ambition, as a hope for all of us, coherence.
Coherence. Okay.
Yes, we have to be coherent.
Absolutely.
Only one word, Carlo?
She said two.
Two.
No, she said two. One word. She said one
is
word.
definition, the second is...
The ambition, and the second one, what you
True.
hope.
True. And may I pass the floor to the two gentlemen? Raghu.
How would the obvious, but nevertheless, I think critical, business innovation?
Business innovation. And how about the wish? You know, the Christmas wish under the tree?
More business innovation.
More business. All right.
You got it. No, I think I would say Christmas wish, I think for me would be speed. I mean, these kind of things can get bogged down in their own processes and search for consensus and et cetera, et cetera. One of the key reasons why Silicon Valley works, of course, is that code talks. I won't say the second part of the phrase that people use, but so we got to make code talk fast. That's what I would say. That would be my wish.
And Stefano?
So as per Gaia-X today, I would say integration is the key word because that's the only way it's going to work. And my wish is definitely being bold. So trying to be, leader, not followers. And in the classic paradox of, Achilles and the tortoise, basically try to catch the tortoise and not be back.
That's wonderful. And a final question. So I understand that we are all innovators. We belong in different organizations. We're also mentors in our own rights. How can we really support each other from a big organization to the smaller organization and the middle organization in one kind of streamlined approach, optimized approach through Gaia-X? And this is an open.
Yeah. Well, let me start. I think we can all rally behind big challenges.
Yes.
And where we all feel that if we contribute, we really move the needle and we have true impact on society or on the economy. And I think if we articulate what we're doing in those challenges, then we can all contribute to our own ability. And that means, Stefano can come with his great ideas about how to develop distributed cloud. Raghu can bring his tremendous distributed and open software capabilities. Carlo can, help the innovators around him because he's been innovating, and I can contribute, on bringing in a big company that can move things. And we can all contribute, but we all have to measure that against the impact we create with the challenge. So ultimately, we have to create these data spaces. We heard Gaia-X. Gaia-X will change the automotive industry.
It will.
But, the work we're doing in agriculture will change the way we grow wine. So,
It should.
and drink wine. So I think there's these big opportunities and challenges is what we should rally around. And then everything below will ultimately fall in place because we agreed that we're going to do it together. We agreed that we're going to learn from each other, and we agreed that we put it in a structure that makes sense and not duplicates or competes.
Carlo?
3 sentences. Well, 2 things I want to give back Caesar what is to Caesar. So 2 things that I've learned at Google. The first one is the famous first principle. Don't do things like you've done them in the past or until now, but start from the user. Why are you doing it? Restart from the user, rethink from the user. Mm-hmm. The second one is don't bet against the internet. Never bet against the internet. Why? Because internet is a common language, and the power of the common language is extremely important. So don't bet against the power of the common language. So if I think to those 2 things and I look at us today, I would say the problem of Europe is that we have too many languages. And I think Gaia-X needs to become one single unifying language. Mm-hmm. We have to speak the same words, and we have to say the things that we mean the same way when we speak, the same things when we speak, so that we can build something that is coherent and can work. It's not an easy task. I agree with Stefano on the importance of being bold, but I'll be a contrarian here. I think we have to be humble, because we have to start by doing things that are feasible and then progress. Mm-hmm. If we aim at the moon immediately, the risk is we don't reach it. So I would be simple things that can have an impact, that align us to speak all the same language and go in the same direction, and then build on that.
Yeah, but you can be bold on the vision and humble on the execution.
Very nice. I totally agree. You're right. That's bold on the vision and humble on the execution. Yeah. I love it. That's great.
Raghu, would you like to pinpoint something?
No, I think both the points made were tremendous. The thing I would certainly, definitely double down on the point about let's do something tangible but simple that can get done now. The second thing I would emphasize is if you look at successful communities, most of the recent examples of phenomenally successful communities, certainly technical communities, have been based around the open source model of collaboration. And all of us understand what it is by now. But I would say if there was something that we should look at for Gaia-X, it's more of that model of collaboration. And what that would result in, by the way, is a very level playing field for small companies, big companies, any sort of companies. But most importantly, it allows innovation cycle to go faster and faster because everybody's able to build on top of the previous person's work.
Stefano?
Yeah, so no, I love the quotation of being bold on the vision and humble on the execution. It is a very romantic way to describe the lean approach, right? Think big and start small. And that's where I would like to, underline. I mean, as a startup here, we don't really need much in order to make innovation come to place, right? Despite the fact that we do our deep tech company and there's a massive R&D that needs to be, taken care of, and we've been doing so for the last 5 years. We started in 4 people in our first office used to be an Airbnb that we used as an office during the day. We rented out at night in order to pay for living, right? So we are very humble in the execution, and we just need some attention and a very limited budget. So as my grandfather used to say, if you want to eat tonight, go fishing where fishes are, right? And the point is, startups can bring innovation, a new perspective, and corporates do have the resources, so they don't have to allocate a lot. It's really a matter of some hours or some very limited budget. But this is what makes the difference, that made the difference in the Silicon Valley and must do the difference in Europe.
That's really wonderful. I think that I'm going to be inviting you in the next panel discussions from this on to this point on, because you're all great. Thank you very much. If we have any further questions to address to these 4 wonderful gentlemen, this would be the time. Okay, no questions, no further questions. Thank you very much. Let's applaud to these 4 gentlemen.